Hello and welcome back to another episode of Flying Model Rockets. As you saw in the last few episodes, I put together, I believe, a skill level 1, a skill level 3. Now I'm going to put together a skill level 4 kit. This one is the Cosmic Interceptor, again from Estes. And I'd like to get some more kits. Actually, what I'd like to do is have some funds to where I can order some parts and assemble some others rockets that are not kits, and tell you how to do it, where to get the parts, what size parts, and so you can actually assemble those. But in the meantime, kits will do, and if I get kits from other companies, I would appreciate that and like to put those together. So yeah, here we go. Cosmic Interceptor, skill level 4. This actually uses E and D and E engines is what it uses. So here we go. I'm going to put it together and I'm going to start opening it up. Apologize for the mess on my table. But anyhow, here we go. As I open it up, you end up with a tube. Not all of it. A packet that includes engine mount and shock cord and other sort of parts. The flyers, the other stuff. Then we end up with another package that has the balsa fins and a cloth parachute. I like that one, cloth parachute. And 2 more body tubes. Another body tube. Another body tube, another piece of body tube, a little body tube on a beautiful little detailed nose cone. It's pretty cool looking. Now I know ahead of time you need to cut this little section out of the ring here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now using the utility knife. Now I like to clean these things up so none of that stuff cuts into the cords. Alright, so there's that. Then we have decals, and I still haven't got to the point where I show you painting the rockets or putting decals on, which I hope someday to actually do that for you. So there we go, we've got this thing emptied. And we've got our tubes. Temporarily I can put the nose cone. No, I can't in that one. Can't in that one either. Put in that one temporarily. Okay. Alright, so I got my tubes lined up over here. Next we have the instructions are in this bag, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the bag. And like I said, cloth parachute, like that. The instructions, some die cut parts, or I should say laser cut now, not die cut, laser cut. Then the fins. Balsa parts. And some more fins and balsa parts. Alright. Okay, now I'm going to start a little bit of this and take a break. It shows all the parts here at the top. got some alignment parts here. So the first thing they tell you to do is cut apart the these pieces. And you want to separate them from this thing, and you want to use your utility knife to do so. And so I'm going to actually do that right now. However, in the past they used to say sand these things, but these don't really need to be sanded. But the balsa parts may help out to do so. I'm just going to go through and do some cutting on these. And I'm going to pause it because it's going to get boring here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cut these pieces out. They're all about the same. I believe there's 8 of them. Didn't quite count. And then there's the 2 rings. And then we have these, which this one's unique and this one's unique. They're similar, but they're still... And then these 2 are about the same. These 3 are about the same. So there we go. We got those things separated. Next thing it says, it says FF, so you have to look back here at FF, and that looks to me like that's that small tube right here. Yeah, baby praying mantis, that's cool. And then it says that we need to mark a 1/2 inch up on it. Now I'm guessing this is actually the engine mount tube. So it's the tube you use to mount the engine. And like I told you before, find a ruler here. Did I get rid of my ruler? Hold on. Well, I guess I'll use this. And it said a 1/2 inch. Well, I'm unprepared. There's an ink pen. Half inch right there. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Hold on. Yeah, there's a 1/2 inch. Like I told you before, best way to do is actually put some tape on here, and I think I put all my tape away. So, so I'll just do this the hard way. And then it says we need to take the engine guide, which would be this thing right here, but it's on the opposite side of the instructions. And we're supposed to mark this item, tube A. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to follow it till I get most of this stuff done, but you need to get that one done. Interesting. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this thing out, and it even has you use no, you don't use this other one here, but you do use this one that has the SHE and all this other stuff, and it cuts right into the instructions, which I think is weird, but that's just what they do. Alright. And that cuts out this little section here where it tells you how and where to glue for tube E and F. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do those instructions. Tube E and F, these look the same. So these should be your E and your J. And then the F are these two rings we just got through doing. Alright, so I'm skipping down here to step 12. And I really should be using some wood glue or white glue. And it looks like they fit on the outside of it. Yeah, they'll fit on the outside of it, so it's alright. But I will return with some glue, and it surprises me I didn't have any handy, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with some glue. I use wood glue. This particular time I'm using some Type Bond 2 because it kind of dries a little faster. Not any particular reason, just I like wood glue opposed to white glue. It just works better. Okay, now what I'm going to do is put some glue just inside the lip and a little bit on the edge. Okay, as you see there, and then I'm going to put the ring on. Try to get as equal and flush as possible. And again, like I told you before, I skipped two. Well, I didn't skip two. But it says cut number 3, which number 3 takes out number 12 and 13. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 12 and 13 together, since they'll be missing since I cut them out of the instructions. Although I can put the instructions back when I'm done, either way. But I'm just going ahead and doing it that way. There's that one, and then I'll just go ahead and do the same thing with the other side. Now you put enough in here to make sure it creates a bead. And I really should have done one side and let it set, and then do the other side and let it set. I should say to fillet. Fillet. Still don't know if that's fillet or fillet. I do recommend when you're working with glue and working with some of this stuff that you have a surface that doesn't hold glue well, like this material doesn't, so I can set this stuff down. If you don't happen to have one and you need to set something down like this, you might want to just get a piece of plastic or an old baggie, or even the old wrapper. Glue doesn't want to adhere to that material, so you can set it down. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about finishing while I'm waiting here. As you see These tubes have little spirals on them. Right there's the spiral. And when you're finishing, those things are kind of hard to fill in. It doesn't affect your flight or anything else like that. And in some cases you end up with multiples. There's a little one right there as well as a bigger one. But if you want a perfect finish, you can fill them in. Some people put the glue on there, fill them in the glue, and then sand them down, which is alright. You can also use multiple coats of primer, or paint, and then sand down between in order to get the finish. I was reading someplace, I think it's from Apogee. They have a nice newsletter. No, I'm not getting anything from Apogee, and no, I'm not getting any funds or kickback or anything like that for it. But gotta get this thing open somehow. But another modeler recommended getting some of this Elmer's wood filler. It does seem to be a rather light thing. And then using some water and mixing it with water and just painting it into the seams, then sanding it down with a 400 or greater grit sandpaper or emery paper. So I'm going to try his technique. I'm going to get a little bit of this out of here, and we're going to try it on a tube. I might actually do it on all the tubes. Now get a little bit of water, a couple of drops in there, and I'm going to mix it together. It thins it down. Greatly. And then you paint it on the tube, and you paint them on the tubes to fill in the gaps before you do any assembly, so that way it's easier to deal with. And it does dry relatively fast, and you do want to get these smaller seams too. But this is if you want to have a perfectly smooth looking body. You don't have to do this. Should get in here where you can see it. Just putting some of the glue water mixture on here. He also recommended that what you do is you use the same stuff on the fin as the sealer. I have a fly bothering me. Pit fly or something. And but then because it's wet, you have to press the fins. So again, you do all this thing before you assemble, and then again you sand, and you may have to give it a couple coats. So there you go. I'm going to have to finish doing this at least on one tube. I don't know if I'm going to do it on the other tubes or not. And then you gotta let this dry. and I shall return. Okay, next, since you've got all these things dry, hoping they're dry, they look dry. Hopefully this is relatively dry too. And again, this is from Apogee's Peak of Flight newsletter. I don't know which one. I just read it. But you sand off the stuff with 400 grit sandpaper. Don't go too far down because you don't want to open up the holes. Now let me explain something to you. Found this quite interesting. When they do this tube, they put a thin layer on to help cover up these gaps right here, thick gaps. But then you have this thin little gap right here. That's really the one that shows up more. This will probably show up as a dip, but that's why you do this. You fill them both, and then you sand it down lightly. Don't go too hard, because then you'll reopen the ones that are sealed. And I'm using 400 grit sandpaper, or emery paper. Matter of fact, this is called gator paper. And you may have to do this a couple of times. But there you go. And I don't know how far down you have to take that. I guess you'll take it to where the white shows through. Now this is my first time of trying this, so I don't know what the results are going to be, but I have done the primer, where you give it multiple coats of primer, but that does add weight to your rocket. Then again, you still want to add some primer to these anyway. It feels pretty smooth. Okay. And it's kind of what you end up with. It ends up filling in little dips and cracks and other things that might be there. But that feels pretty doggone smooth. I'm not... It still feel a little... like right there. A little dip on a few of these with my thumbnail, so it might have to do it again. But anyhow, that's the idea. Now I'm going to get back to the assembly. It says to take this pattern that you have and put it on this tube. Double check to make sure it's the correct tube, A. Yeah, okay. And then what you want to do is you want to wrap this around, and again on these it shows the overlap area. So you overlap it right on the overlap, the little seam there. And then you want to line up your lines. Okay. And then you want to mark. I'd recommend you tape this. I don't happen to have any tape handy, which is again something I do. And my ink pen seems to be failing. That's S. Another S. Another S. And it says EH. And yes, I'm marking these right on the tube so I know which ones are which. And yeah, I recommend you do tape it. Alright. Now again, in the past I showed you where I just scooted a board over the edge and did my fin markings. Well, you can do that. Just gotta make sure that this is even across there. We could do it inside of a jam. So I've shown you before in videos. We can get one of those marking guides, which is just a square, which I may do one sometime, but right now you can see what I'm doing. And they do show you going all the way up on these S's, so I apologize for that. Alright, so there you go. Then you can of course take this right back where you need it if you did not do step 12, which is step 12 and step 13, which is fine. Taper right back and you're ready to go, following the instructions in the proper order. Okay, but anyhow, so now next step is it sits there and says we want to take our engine mount oh, it's in here. Okay. Thrust ring. Should be this thing right here. Green ring. And that's why you have this thing marked. And again, in the past I showed you where you put some tape right here so that when you shove it in there, it doesn't go any farther. Okay, you come down to this end that has most of the marks, and you go in, it says 3 inches, which is basically right to here. In other words, your engine, your line on this thing should mark where it should be, and it should be right at the top. So you want to go farther than that. So what you want to do now is you want to get a stick or some rod or tube or something. Here, I can use this. And you want to put some glue on there, and you want to put it in about that far. Now typically what I do is I'll just hold my finger right here, and I know that this very edge here is where I want to put the glue. So I'm going to put some glue on it. Try not to do it above my instructions. You could also create a little pad of glue. Then you come in here, stick it in there, and then bring it up and start wiping. Now you do want it down almost to where that thing is, so when you shove this in, it goes up, connects to the glue, and then stops in the glue. So it picks up glue as it goes. So if you got it down a little bit low, don't worry about it. So look inside, see if you got it all the way around. You don't. Add a bit more glue. Find out where you're missing it. Okay. Now it's time for you to take this ring. Take this thing, be sure to hold it right where it stops. Slide it on up in there. Right to where your stop is, right there. And actually you can feel it in there. Now take this back out. Hopefully it doesn't hold on to that. Now stay right where it needs to be. Or you could squeeze it like I did, just a little bit. And that should be where you do it. If you're missing this, save your empty engines, because you can use your empty engines to do the same thing. I don't have any empty E or Ds. Alright, then it says you then put this thing at 3 1/4. I start at 1, so that means 4 1/4. That's just what I do, because this end might not be accurate or something, but anyhow. So let's see, 3 1/4 inches be right there. Alright then, I now need to push this thing in to cut a little hole. Hopefully I can do that. I hope it's not right there on that engine ring. It shouldn't be. Yeah, it goes in there nicely. As a matter of fact, I actually kind of right up against it. Neat. And then push that in. Again, because I'm too far away. I put a little slit right there along that EH. Right there. Pushed it in. Just like that. And I take the mount with this hook end to the inside and this little piece inside and slide it in there. That's ready to go. Now it has part C, which I believe this is part C. And it shows 3/4 of an inch. So we go 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to mark that in multiple places. So we get the idea. And then the bottom of that is going to slide down to that 3/4 of an inch mark. Right there. Let me show you 3/4 inch marks around here. And then this is going to slide down right to the 3/4 inch mark. Right there like that. Now, these actually mount on there, so you may want to double check that to make sure that it's not too far down. And actually I might want to need to push it back just a hair on mine, about right there, so I can see this little very edge. And see, this will help you. I'm trying to get in film here. This is the piece that's going to mount right down here, so you want to make sure that it doesn't, if you get it too far down, it's going to overhang by a little bit, makes a little point, which is alright, that doesn't affect it. Or you're going to have it slid up too far, in which case then this hangs down a little bit too far. It probably okay as well. If you get there just right, it's going to look like a nice model. And there is a little bit of give in here, probably about 1/16 of an inch. So anyhow, there you go. Now you put some glue in there. And I'm going to spread it around a little bit just because I like to do so. I don't want too much glue, so then it's going to bind up at the bottom. But I do want enough there. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to clean up this at the bottom. And then while it's still kind of wet, I'm going to double check my thin. And I like that where it's at. Okay. Alright, so that's it. That's good. If you want to, you can add a little extra right here, but these will help hold it into place. Alright, and it says part H, which I'm looking back here at the parts. Part H, they all should be the same, exact same size and shape. So we can get all those things on there right now. Alright. And these do have a little burr right down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to very quickly go like this. Take that down to almost nothing. take much, even though with that 400 grit paper. And let me double checking the instructions to make sure I'm following them correctly. Yeah, on each one of these S lines is where you're going to put the H, and it goes in there like this. Can you see that? Here, this way. The pointy end goes to the short end of the tube. Okay, and now what you're going to do is you're just going to put the glue on there and glue them into place, and it's going to take you a little bit of time, but here we go. I'm going to do one, and then I'll let you as a matter of fact, like I showed you before, I like to take a piece of plastic or something, or put some glue on it. Usually I like something flat, but and then I can take these pieces, these H pieces, and move these others out of my way here. And just kind of dip them in there, get a little bit on the edge. And put it on there. And again, I told you I like to do one side, but this time I'm doing it right on the line. And you want it sticking straight up from the tube. And I'm again pushing the bottom piece up against the ring and make sure the gap is at the top. So that's just the way I'm rolling, and I got it out of film there. Again, I'm pushing up here at the bottom so that it pushes up against the bottom of the ring right here, and so they're all going to be flush against here. If there's any gap, it'll be up here at the top, which is going to be inside the other body tube. And then what you need to do, make sure they line up. Then you've got to spend the time to go all the way around and put them all on. So it's going to be a while. This has been a little bit of a long stretch here of videotaping, but anyhow, I'm going to do the rest and I shall return. I noticed I followed the instructions wrong, but that's not a big deal. I went ahead and glued all these things on. But what you're supposed to do is you're actually supposed to slide this thing on and then put the rest of these things on here. Well, I'm happy with what I did. But this does not go on there real nice and smoothly, so it should be on there a little tight. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to widen this out a little bit by sanding it. Fits in there a little bit better. Still a little snug. And I'm going to do that for the other end as well. Okay. Then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to glue this onto here. And then you're supposed to glue all those little fins on there. Right? It shows you putting glue right here and then sliding it on. Well, the thing is that the glue won't get right here. So I'm going to apply the glue down here. And then, like they said, you glue one on the here, and then you put the others on here. This will work fine the way it is. What I would actually recommend to do now, since I've assembled it, is actually not put this top ring on till you get this one down, and then put some glue inside, put the ring on here on both these pieces. To me, it just feels like it's more secure. But anyhow, I'm going to add a fillet around here. And might want to clean up a little bit around here. Maybe twist it a little bit. But that's that part. I'm spending some time in here and I'm talking and okay. So there's the assembly of that piece, which finishes step 16. But 16 says go ahead and add these extra fins on here. Well, I went ahead and glued all the fins on. So you can follow it either way. You can glue all the fins on. I like the way it turned out though. Turned out alright. I got them even. Or you can glue one fin on, put this piece on, and then glue the other fins on. Either way. But there's the engine mount. They show you assembling these as steps 10, 11, 12, and 13. And while that's drying, right here, you can go ahead and do that. Because I skipped, I went over here 11, 10, 11, 12. Then there's a interesting 10, 11, 12, 13. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So they've got some odd numbering on here, which is alright. No, it it doesn't. Whatever. So you take body part I, which is one of these tubes right here, and you put some plastic on it. I'm taking that leftover piece of plastic to use. There you go. And then they want you to assemble this. So what it does is it starts out with the big part towards the end, or it doesn't matter which direction you go. And then you have this part, the smaller part, and your 2 cc's, which are the small ones, are on the outside, and then your bigger ones, next two bigger ones, are on the next ring, and then the big ones in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the big one in the middle. And you put a drop of glue in here, and in here. This piece connects right there. This piece connects right there. That's what you're getting. Already starting to fall apart. And then you put it on the tube. And then you go ahead and you take the next larger, or you can take the two outside ones, doesn't matter. And then what you do is you just let all this, you try to keep it straight. You might even want to tape it down. Put some tape on here to hold it flat and everything else. Yeah, and I didn't bring any tape, but you may want to do the tape thing to hold it flush against the body. And then you let it dry. Well, I'm going to let it dry. So I shall return. As you can see where we're at now, got this piece done. Again, I did not follow instructions. I did not glue all these separately. I glued them on, and then I put this on. But you could put one on, put this one on to stop it. That's really what it's for, and then you can glue the rest of them. Again, they recommend you put some glue here and here. If you're going to do that, I'd recommend you put the glue here, slide this down, and then put this on afterwards, so you can put the glue right there and it'll bunch on the inside. Or do it this way, just add the fillet to the outside. So there you go. That's where we're at now. Waiting for this to dry. I sanded these tubes. I do feel every once in a while that it's missing in some locations, but other locations I take my thumbnail and I run it up, and there it is. But it is filled in a little bit better. You may have to do multiple coats, or it may be thin enough now that once you do your primary coat, you won't see it. And I'm thinking that, you know, that might be a good idea to do from now on out. Of course, these are very big gaps. You can really feel them. You can see them. You can hear them. So, again, like I said, I'll return with the rest of it. Now that this is dry, we can take it off of here. Take that off of there. So now this is done. Got this assembly done. This assembly done. Basically handles our first two pages, and then we need to start working on the inside instructions, which has us gluing part G on. Well, part G is this little tube here, and it'll actually come on here, and I'll need to slide those little, or sand those little spots down that are holding it. So I'll just actually do that right now. Okay, and there, that's better. That'll go around that. So what I'll do is apply the glue right now. It actually looks pretty cool. Now I could apply it on each one of these fins, or I can apply it inside of here. I'm thinking I'm going to apply it right here on these fins. Just slide that right on there. And clean up the mess. And I don't know whether or not I'll be going back and putting the fillets on the inside of this to help hold this thing on. I might add a couple drops of glue here at the top to do it, but I imagine that'll probably hold it fine. So that is number 17 and 18. Seems weird because, like I said, there's some numbers wrong in here. And then it goes to the assembly of the wings. Right. So we are letting this is dry. This just got glued and dried at that assembly. Matter of fact, yeah, it's going to be pretty cool looking. Got it on there and I gotta get it back off. There we go. Alright then. So the fin assembly, you start taking your pieces apart. And again, I remember in the old days these used to be what was called die cut, and now they're laser cut. So we grab this sheet right here. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you what they do. Sometimes they just tell you to go ahead and sand. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and lightly sand this just for the sake that I think it helps out a little bit. I don't know why. It kind of knocks some of that darkness of the laser off. And then we're going to cut the fins. They basically come right on out. A couple of these I guess I didn't cut correctly, so I'll have to trim off the extra flashing. Alright then, so we've got those four. They're all the same. And again, I'm going to even up the edges. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. Okay. Got those. And I'm going to cut out all the rest of these, so I shall return after I finish cutting them all out, and then I can show you the assembly. Alright, the next step, they recommend you get a straight edge. Well, hopefully this balsa is straight enough, but you need to glue 3 of these sections together after you got them all done. This big long one here, this trapezoid one, and then this other typical fin one. These two go like this, and then the one. But anyhow, watch me do it. So I apply a little bit of bead glue right along this edge, and I smooth it out. Don't overdo it, but just to make sure it's right, I'll go ahead and add a little bit of glue here to this edge too. But I don't want to, actually I won't, because I may overdo it. Alright, so then I put these two together, and I put them flush together right here, make sure that this edge is flush. And it does bead up a little bit, which is alright. Then you'll add a little bit of glue to this right here. And this edge. Of course, this edge only goes down far enough to match that. You don't want it along the entire thing. And you definitely don't want to glue here or here up against this. Alright. So this one goes right into here. And you slide this thing down to make sure that this edge is all flush. Alright. Now, next you'll be taking this part and gluing it in right here. And it is possible that may not fit correctly. It's a little tight right there. So what I'm going to do, pull this back out. Because this has a tendency to pull up on them, I'm just going to leave it out for right now. Line all that back up. And I'm going to let the glue dry. And again, do this on a surface where the glue doesn't stick to it. That's the important thing, that the glue doesn't stick to it. So right now I'm doing that one. I'm going to let dry. I'll do the opposite side same way. And then I'll come back and I'll put these on there. You may find out you need to do it differently, but this is the way I like doing it and want to do it. That way I can smooth this out and clean this thing up before I glue this thing on. And that's the way it goes. If you might find out also that you need to weight this down. Keep those things flush. Put something on there, weight it down. Yeah, it looks good. So I'm going to let that dry. I'll do the other side, and then I'll come back and add these extra fins on there. I don't know if you can see that one. Looks like a long car or whatever. So I shall return. Okay, got this one side done. I went ahead and worked on it, cleaned it up. This one is the other side that I finished. You will have to get this raised up glue off. You can sand it, you can scrape it, you can cut it. It would be best if I had a razor blade, but anyhow, you can bring this thing down till it's flush. And you want to do the same on the other side. This, because I had the plastic underneath, actually should come off a little easier. There it goes. To where it's not raised. So that's that part. I'm going to finish working on this, but then you place one on one side and one on the other. See how they line up? That looks really nice. But then you add these sections right here. Alright? Slide this stuff down so I can get a little closer to you. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to test fit them first. Okay. Yeah, that fits in there. That's a little tight. You may have to clean these up and adjust them. That one fits. Yeah, it fits in there nicely. So what you now want to do is you want to glue this in place on both sides. I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish scraping this thing up, so I'm not going to glue this one right now. So then you want to add a little bit of glue here. I do recommend you put some inside the hole. And that way you don't end up on this little gap, which you'll actually add to that later, but like I said, you do want some in the hole. You see some of it came through here. And you want to push it down all the way. And you want to clean up or add a little bit of your fillet with any leftover glue. And then you let that dry, and I'm going to be back because I've got to finish working on this one and do it again for the same side. But again, you do want to test fit it, because you'll find out that sometimes it's a little tight in here. You want it tight, but you don't want it to where it bends this thing out to where it's no longer flush. So you may have to come in here and like trim up the back side a little bit by some sanding or scraping, and then get it to fit, or you might actually have to sand the little holes in which they get into. But that's the idea. Then when it dries, we'll come back and we'll sand down or clean up this side. But you do want that down as far as you can get it, and you just let that dry, and I shall return. Okay, well, these are drying, which, by the way, these are part of the 8 and 9. I haven't added these extra little pieces to the bottom because I'm going to let it finish up drying, but there's these little strips that go on the bottom to even up the fin on the bottom. But I'll add those in a bit. But anyhow, while these things are still drying, it's time to work on some other parts of it. And what they want you to do is mark the center of it. You can measure it, or you can just mark it. In my case, I'm going to measure it, and it happens to be 4 inches long. So if you mark it at 3 inches, excuse me, 2 inches, okay, mark it at 2 inches. You don't have to mark it all the way around. Again, you could put tape on here that's easily removable, and you could fit it right in there. But now we need to apply some glue inside this. So just spread some glue in there. I usually, in this case, spread around a little bit with my finger. Okay, and then you slide your tube in right up to the point right there. Okay, and I do recommend that you let this dry before you glue the next part. I mean that seriously. Let it dry. Also, you may see that sometimes you end up with a little bead down in there. I don't know if you can see that or not down there. I guess you can't. Maybe you can. Anyhow, you can get something to clean that out if you want to. Smooth it out. Or you can leave it in there. I like it better if I smooth them out. Just me. Okay. And it's not in there anymore. So let that dry, and as everything's drying, I'm going to return. This is now going back to the main body tube part, which you have to have assembled before you can glue the fins on. Alright? So we shall return. Well, this had a chance to dry, and these have had a chance to dry. Now it's time for me to go ahead and glue the other end on. Doesn't matter which end. So I'm going to do the same thing, add a little bit of glue inside the tube. There it goes. And spread it around. And I got a lot of extra left over, so I'll try not to get this on the rocket as I do this. And slip it in there. I like to turn a little bit as I go. There you go. There's the body tube glued together. Again, this is an area right here during the seam where you may want to fill it in with some of that body putty to get rid of the seam. But there's that. Now, since I've got some, oh, I didn't get on. Yeah, I got on my shirt, didn't I? Yeah, I'm going to have to wash that. Now, we then have these small pieces. Right here, one side's angled, and that angled piece will fit, both sides are actually angled, will fit up against the end here and one end here. But what you want to do is you want to make sure it's even with the piece it's being glued onto. So here I go, I'm going to just add some glue to this. Add a little bit to the ends. Nice having that extra glue. And I'm going to put it in here, and like I said, make sure it's even with the piece that it's on. I'm not worried about whether I get it flush up against one side or the other. Okay, and then I'm going to just basically stick it down and probably weight it a little bit. Then I'm going to do it with the other piece. It might be good for me to do the other piece and then weight them both down. Again, check to make sure that it fits in there. You don't have to sand anything. Add the glue to the main part. Add some to the end. The other end. Put it in here and make sure it's even with the body. I mean, even with this piece. Alright. Slip those two together and put some weight down on it. Alright, so there's those two. Glue there. The next steps are coming up, and I'm going to have to wait for things to glue in order to finish doing those. We're going to add these pieces, but there's going to be some sanding on them. See them too? Yeah. I'm going to sand them so that one edge fits in here, which you can't see right now, in these little grooves in that upper fin, but the other edge gets sanded off to where it fits on the body tube. And well, we're going to just have to do that. As a matter of fact, if I knew about where that was, I could just kind of sand it. A variety of ways to do that. Matter of fact, I'll actually just start that now. Is this the same size? That's a little bit bigger. Which, that's alright too. Yeah, so you get some sandpaper. Put it on the body tube. Take this piece and try to figure out about where it's going to be, and then you just start sanding. It's about a 45-degree angle, so I'm going to sand about right here. Right, you want it sanded down like that at an angle. Hopefully you can see that angle. I need to get up here where everything there is. Right? Alright. And then you do it for the other one as well. And that's basically it. It'll be prepared for the next step, so I'll come back after I sand things. Thanks! While things are drying, I'll show you then the other fin assembly. And again, it's best if you use something to keep them from sticking. So again, I'm going to apply some glue to this edge and glue the two together, again weighting them, and you do not get it into the gap. See that gap? You need that gap, so don't put any glue in there. Just on this one edge. See? Leave the gap alone. And then you take the other fin, these are for the side fins, and you put them up together. Make sure they're even. Then again, like I said, it's a good idea to weight them down so that they're even. I'm going to do this one in front of me. I can't really quite see it very well, but again, add some more glue. I mentioned skip over the gap. So the gap is going to be used when you glue the fins to the outside of these. Alright, now you need to let everything dry, and it's one of the things I don't have patience for. By the way, this video seems like it's very short and done very quickly. The problem is this actually so far has taken 2 days, and there's still a lot of work. I've got to basically let things dry and other stuff. So that's, patience is a virtue when assembling these kind of rockets, and especially these more advanced scale rockets, even advanced level rockets. You just basically be patient and don't rush through anything. You could if you want to, like, like super glue on these and stuff like that, but I prefer things I know that work well and don't like rushing. So again, I'll probably add some filler in here and sand that down, which I'll probably do while this thing's going on, so I'll be back. Alright, got stuff in the way and I'm sorry. But these have dried with that extra bar that's placed on there, and I need to sand them and clean them up a little bit, but they're done. And these have dried, and again we go through that same process of scraping off the extra glue. And get some of the sandpaper. Then we want to glue these pieces on. Now you'll see one side is sharper than the other side, or pointier. That goes up here at the point of the fin, and so it will sit like this, and this will line up right on that thing. So you want to have it as flush up here as possible. and then you want to just glue that. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to glue this one and show you. Doesn't need a lot of glue. Then, oops, spread it evenly all across it. And line it up. I'm going to slide a little bit forward here because I'm going to sand these things so that they match. There's that, and again, you put weight on it and let it dry. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, same process. Get the glue knocked off, get it sanded down, and glue it. Then, like I said, the next piece will be, these things will actually end up going, I guess, out here like this. Yeah. Yeah, like that. So that's what we'll do. Again, this one part will be on the outside, but again, this is not something you can rush. You got to take your time with it, and I will be back as I get these things done. Thank you. Okay, these have dried. Like I said before, these have dried, and I filled this in with this, again, some wood putty right here in each one of these spots. If you sand it down, it gives it a nice smooth surface. Filled in any holes that I saw. Again, you do this one for this one too. So those things are dry. These are dry. Like I said, this is dry. This is now dry. The tube I assembled it. Next thing for you to do is actually mark the fin marks, which is steps. 5, 6, 7. And again, you do the normal procedure. You line up the lines right there, and you mark. And these are actually thicker lines, so you'll mark both of them. 1, 2. That's an MF. It's a CF. An MF. Then you extend the lines quite a distance, as a matter of fact, because they will have to go all the way almost up to this. Don't think they have to go any farther. Yeah, just up to about halfway. So I'm going to mark them, and then I'm going to come back and glue, and but let me mark these and I'll return. Okay, I've got them marked. And then what you need to do is you just need to glue these things on, or glue them to the appropriate side. I'm going to start with the one I just got through sanding, and apply the glue. Oops, well, that was a good thing to do. It won't come off that hard. Again, apply it, I recommend, directly to the fin. That way you don't have to run it down the tube. And again, it's always helpful if you happen to have something just almost exactly the right height, which this is. I'm not too sure they meant for it to be, but put it right between both lines. And check to make sure it's yep, that's going to be level. Best thing for you to do though is to hold it for a while. Until it dries enough to where it remains pretty well level. And as you can see, this end. Also, if you happen to have a little extra, you can smooth out the fillets. And I'm getting that off. There we go. Well, I move it just a little bit and it messes up both directions. That's looking good. So I'm going to hold it for a while. So, shall return. Okay, this one side is dried. And I'm going to have to add the fillets or fillets against that. Now time to do the other side. And I've filled in with some wood putty and sanded. As a matter of fact, it feels like I need to sand it a little bit more here. So we have a pretty smooth and flush surface. So that's pretty good. Alright, so again, up with the end. And probably going to have to hold it till it gets tacky enough. Okay, I've got these both dried. One thing you will have to do is you'll have to prop up this side and this side. Best thing would be like use some books or something. This orange tube did help out. It's just about the right size, and you can also use this, which is just about the right size to hold it. See right there, that works pretty good. Not great, but anyhow, you do need to keep them level, and I recommend books or blocks of wood that are just exactly the right height right here to hold them flush. But anyhow, you should be able to get them into where they're pretty well even here. Just like that. Okay. Then again, like I said, you want to do your fillets. But in the meantime, time to add the other fin on here, and it actually go. I would suspect it would go on this way. See this in here. So it'd go this way. but actually it goes this way, reverse, with the bigger point towards the front. And so that's what I'm going to do now. Let's glue that one on. Again, it's like this. There's the glue, and this big end goes towards the front, so it goes on like this. Then you want to make sure you've got it pretty well centered, straight. It actually looks pretty good. I'll probably go out here and just to hold this thing so it is level. And while this is good, I didn't put too much on there, I'll go ahead and add another fillet here and there and start doing my fillets just to add in there. So here I'm going to go do it, let this dry, and start adding some fillets on the parts, and I shall return again, letting this dry. While I'm waiting for that to dry, time for me to go ahead and do some more on this. Best thing for you to do is cut this part of the shroud out, this little piece of tube, and then you're going to use it on the other large body tube, I believe. Okay, so you cut out that piece. Hopefully you're done with the instructions, which we should be. There on the other side of it. And then you place it on this body tube, but it does have a center line, and you should do the center line. So best thing for you to do is to mark a line, center line along the tube. And then you will want to line this up with that center line. And mark it. Alright, and then you're going to cut that out. Again, it's probably best if you do it, have scissors. You can cut it out with the Sharpie if you want to. It will work. I'm probably going to do so. But anyhow, you'll want to cut this piece out, and that's for later on down the road. And I'll be back as things dry and get things cut, and I shall return. Okay, so I've got this piece cut, which I'm going to hold off for later. This is still drying, but while it's drying, I thought I'd go ahead and add the launch lug. It's supposed to go about 3 inches up here. So if we take our piece here, three inches is about right here. So I'm going to glue that in there, right there. And you'll notice that the launch lug is a little bit bigger than normal, because this is more of a heavy-duty rocket. You need a stronger, larger piece. And they recommend that because these things are shiny, sand them down a little bit to give it a little bit of bite with the glue. It's not really necessary. But on the smaller ones, you know, like wax, they have a wax buildup or whatever. And you want this a little bit out from the tube when you put it on there. Take a little piece and clean it out from okay. So there's that 3 inches added, and this is still drying, and you see my fillets on there are still drying. So we've got this shroud, which actually fits someplace, which we'll be putting on here soon. I haven't glued it yet, but I sand these things down. You can see now that they're looking more flat, equal to the piece here. I might, still looks to me like I have to sand it a little bit more to bring them down a bit, but it does look better. And so as you see, you get them sand until they're parallel with this fin, and then you glue them in place. So I'm still going to sand a little bit and test fit. That's probably going to take you most of the time when working on this, but okay, I now have these sanded down, and I pretty well put them on this way, so I'm going to put them back the same way that I worked on them. Double check it, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to do the other side. Take a lot of glue, just a little. You don't want to overdo it. Then you end up with some glue spots where you might not be able to reach them. So there you go. They're not perfect, but they're pretty doggone close, and I'm going to be satisfied with that. So there you are, and I think that fin looks pretty well centered. It does to me. So again, time to let things dry, and I will be back. When I was assembling these fins here, I forgot to add these 2 fins. But I can add them now just as easily. One will go on one side, and one will go on the other one. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those right now. Again, you want to let the glue to dry between. But they should have been assembled when I assembled this piece. So I apologize for the mistake of not including it, but yeah, it looks like it's still lined up. It is. And you let the glue dry, and then you glue the other one on the other side. But I should be able to do that now. Yeah, I can do this. Alright. Okay. So now I've got those 2 glued on there. And I apologize for not including them when you first glued up this assembly, but you should do that. So right now I'm going to let all this glue dry, and I'll return later. Again, I do want to fill in these sections right here on both sides with some wood putty, just to smooth it out and even it out, and I will be back. Okay, I'm just going to add some fillets to here and fill in some wood gaps and other stuff on this, but that's on there, and this is all dried. I'm going to have to fill in here with some wood putty. I do need to glue this tube on here, which I will do also, which finishes up the lugs, and I believe it goes right there. Let me see here. As a matter of fact, I'll actually do that right now. 13 inches up. I don't happen to have my tape measure handy, but it shows it right there, which is probably 13 inches up. Get on some of this extra glue. Okay, and now you need to glue these on the side. The biggest pointy end goes towards the top. So I'm going to test fit them first. Yeah, that one goes on. One's a little tight. Okay, so that's how they go on. I'm gonna probably sand this down just a little bit. Yeah, that's a little easier. And then you got to glue it. So apply a little glue right here to this edge, actually on the edge of this, and just a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. If you have any extra, spill it out to do the fillet. Again, same thing. Look and see if they're, yeah, they're pretty well perpendicular. So, I don't know if you can see, there they are. That's glue and that's drying, all that other stuff. Now, while all this is drying, I'm going to discuss this piece, and they show you gluing it on first and then putting this piece on, but to be honest, I personally think that this piece should go on first, like this. And the reason why I say that is because I do want to center it, and if I just slip it in there, it may not fit where it's supposed to fit. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is something that I like to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pen, I'm going to mark this center line right here, even with this line. In other words, I basically wrap it around, and then I do the same thing here as well. I line it up, double to make sure that that's centered, and then what I do is, again, I just put it up against something, or put something flat down along it. Okay, so I've got a line down the center of it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue the center of this in here first. And I know that seems weird and different from their instructions, but that way I'll feel pretty good about it. Maybe doing it wrong. If I am, I am. I also may want to check. Yeah, it looks to me like it's okay. Yeah, I got some extra dripping over. I'm going to peel it off. Don't do it this way, this is dangerous. That looks pretty good. Then what I'm going to do is take it and I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to, like I said, center it. With that centerpiece going straight along that line as well as I can get it, and then these edges coming up. And again, if I had some tape, I'd be kind of taping it into place. Yeah, what you'll want to do is you'll want to, like I said, tape it or weight it down, but I want to put some tape on it, and I got a little bit of tape here. Maybe it'll hold. Rubber band would work good too. Alright, so there it is. We want to actually hold it for a little bit. And I shall return. Let that dry. Okay, well, this should be dry now. I didn't use exactly the best tape to do it, but it worked beautifully. And then this actually will go back here on the back, and it looks to me like it fits nicely, and it's supposed to be even with the tail, but see, it's a little off. And I also find this thing to be interesting because this basically is an air pocket. It comes in at X force, and I'm guessing what happens is that little bit compensates for these fins that are on this side. Just a wild guess on my part. So anyhow, that is the next step. I would take that apart. I'm having problems with this for some reason. And just going to add some glue to the inside of this. Just kind of flipping it over the end. Double checking to make sure they say put it to the end. Yep, and then I'm going to add some glue to these. Again, not a lot. You just kind of want to basically tap them. And then line it up, push it down, and again this time I believe taping would be a good idea. To hold it into place. Until it dries. And it's the next step. So far I spent over a week working on this because I work on it in stages. You do a little bit here, a little bit there, let it dry, and that's kind of the way the thing works. It's just a slow process model rocket, so don't be in any rush if you're working on it. And I'm adding the fillets on the back side, or fillets on the back side, however you want to call them. Somebody I'm pretty sure will correct me at some time on the exact pronunciation of these. Okay. Again, like I said, just let everything dry. I like this design so much that I'd actually like to make a smaller scale of it. It would be nice to get the materials and have the money, basically have the money to buy the materials to scale it down, because I'd like to fly it instead of with a D or E, I'd like to fly it with a standard engine. Looks to me like it'd be complicated to scale it down, but still would be a fun one to do. I'll be sitting in there like that. Anyhow, so again, I'm letting things dry. I'm going to come back and do some more adding of putty in here to smooth things out. This got smoothed out nicely. So these, and I need to do it on the other side as well. So again, I shall return, and I believe this orange thing is the tube you use if you're going to use D engines, because they're a little shorter than E, as I understand, and that would fit into here and let you run D engines in. Just a little extra thrust ring. So you gotta hold on to that. So anyhow, there we go. I shall continue, and again, I might do probably will come here and do the liquid putty on here in order to get rid of these. You can hear them when you put your finger on them. Things, and smooth out this seam right here, so it's not visible. Just feeling to see if there's anything else I need to work on, and I shall return. This has been one of the longest model rocket builds I've ever done. I even put together way back when the Mars lander, and I can't remember it even taking this long, but I probably was mistaken. But anyhow, back again. I'm now going to add the fillets here and do some more filling in and stuff, and then I need to glue on this fin, which again goes on what I call a kind of a backwards pattern. So first I'm going to add it doesn't look like it's sticking out. I guess that's okay. Yeah, it's fine. I have just an optical illusion. Here it goes. We'll get on this other side. And then they said some down here at the end. And I guess that helps reinforce that. Okay. And then I'm going to glue this fin on. I do want to sand this bottom a little bit more here. Yeah, it's pretty good. And line it right along this piece that you've done before. I'm thinking that it's straight along the body. It seems to be. That looks pretty even. So again, let the glue dry, and I think we'll probably be finished with the fins and everything. Okay, found the parachute, just fell down on the floor. Just need to open it. Be careful not to cut it as you're opening it. These are a very nice parachute. I understand why the kit might be a little bit more expensive, because this is actually a nylon chute. Pretty heavy duty, and cords are actually pretty heavy duty too. So the best thing for you to do is actually to line all the cords up together like this. Then find the center of each of these loops. There we go. Right, leave it as a, leave the opening. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually slip this through here.